at 6 p.m. City Clerk Gonzalez.
The Madera City Council meetings are open to the public. This meeting will also be available for public viewing and participation through Zoom. Members of the public may also observe the live stream meeting on the city's website at www.madera.gov/live. Members of the public may comment on agenda items at the meeting or remotely through an electronic meeting via phone by dialing 669-900-6833. Enter ID 896-6146-0340 #. Press *9 to raise your hand to comment and *6 to unmute yourself to speak. Comments will also be accepted via email at City Council Public Comment at Madera.gov or by regular mail at 205 West 4th Street, Madera, California, 93637.
Thank you for that. Call this meeting to order for roll call.
Mayor Gallegos.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilmember Zachariah.
Here.
Councilmember Montes.
Here.
Councilmember Evans is absent. Councilmember Mejia.
Here.
Councilmember Villegas.
Here.
Thank you for that. The invocation will be given by Councilmember Zachariah, following with Pledge Allegiance by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez. Everybody would please stand.
Thank you. God, as we enter this meeting, we just always ask that you continue to give us guidance and wisdom. We just ask that you be with this meeting regarding our budgets, that we always ask that you pray for our city and allow its finances to grow, and that we can continue to do the needs of our community. And we ask all this in your name. Amen.
Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. I will be turning it over to the City Clerk for public comment.
I believe we need to go back to approval of agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Approval of the agenda. I'll bring this to my colleagues for any questions, concerns, or changes.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for that. Moving on.
Public comment. Members of the public shall have an opportunity to address the City Council regarding matters on this agenda at the time the agenda item is called. Speakers should limit their comments to 3 minutes.
Thank you for that. And consent calendar?
Now on to consent calendar. I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor.
All right. If I could get any motion or any concerns or comments from my fellow colleagues for the consent calendar. I see none. I open it up for public comment. See none. Anybody on Zoom or online?
We have none, Mayor.
With that, I close public comment and would entertain a motion from my colleagues.
Move to approve consent. I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item.
Section B, petitions, bids, resolutions, ordinances, and agreements. Item B1 is presentation and adoption of the fiscal year 2025-26 proposed budget.
Thank you. And we'll be turning that over to our financial director, Lima. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hear a woo. All right.
I paid for that woo. I wanted you to know that. Let's see here. Okay. Good evening, Council. Mike Lima, Director of Financial Services. It is my distinct pleasure this evening to bring to you the FY 25-26 proposed budget for the City of Madera. So we will go through this presentation will have several pieces. We'll do an overview of the budget. We'll review some key additions to the budget. We'll turn it over to you folks for any discussion or questions you may have. And then we have a recommendation for action on the proposed budget. So the 25-26 budget, it has, I want to get this bar off. Resume. Let me do this.
There you go. That's a little better. 25-26 proposed budget, the appropriations are $221.8 million. That is $5.7 million or 2.6% higher than the 24-25 budget. As I mentioned last week, it is the largest budget in the city's history. There's an increase of most of the growth involves an increase of $17.2 million in the developer impact fee budgets, and that's partially offset by a decrease of $14.7 million in sewer capital. Those two are the big drivers behind the overall growth of $5.7 million in the budget. Proposed revenue is $232.5 million, which is $5.7 million or 2.5% higher than 24-25's budget. The projected revenues include $57.3 million of fund balance use across all funds, and that's used to fund the appropriations. What happened? There. Okay. So here's the budget. Here is what it looks like. This is the revenue side. I mentioned already the large amount of carryover or budget, what we call budgetary carryover fund balance that's being used, $57.3 million. The largest single source of revenue for the city in this budget is taxes, $43 million worth. Charges for services, $39.5 million. And then we have federal grants coming in at $33.8 million. Here's the expenditures by category. So salaries and benefits is actually not the largest category. It's the second largest, but that is $38.7 million, which is about looks like about $1.3 million higher than our last full year of actuals, which would be 23-24. Capital outlay, $89.1 million. A lot of capital on the books this year that we're planning to do. And then materials and services, this would be your operations and maintenance costs, postage, gasoline, electricity, all those things that just make things run. That's $37.2 million. Interfund charges, those are those charges that are billed between departments, $9.8 million. Our functional expenses, these would be payments for very specific items within the budget, $1.5 million, $27 million of special payments, and then $17.8 million of transfers out. And then by department, the big departments or the departments with the largest budgets, you might think it's police, but it is not. Second place goes to engineering at $50.7 million. And then our largest department is Public Works at $90.4 million. Police would be third at $21.9 million. But Parks also gets a nice little chunk of change, $12 million for Parks. And that's just down very slightly from last year. So yeah, we definitely invest in our parks here at the city. Okay. General fund overview. Thought there was more here. Oh, there is. Okay. I'm like, wait, that didn't happen. So general fund proposed appropriations are $43.7 million. The general fund appropriations are $1.1 million or 2.6% higher than 24-25's general fund appropriations. General fund revenue is also $43.7 million. That's also up $1.1 million, but $1,460,000 of unreserved fund balance is baked into that 43.7, and that is used to pay for one-time expenses. That use is up in fiscal year 24-25. We used we had budgeted $848,272. We didn't end up using a penny of it. We did not tap into that reserve. But we are budgeting to use $1,460,000 in the upcoming year budget. So it is an increase. This is the general fund on the revenue side. Taxes are the largest general fund revenue source at $28 million. And then followed very, very far in the distance off by transfers in of $4.9 million. So really it comes down, and I know council's tired of me saying the big five. Well, the big five mostly sit in taxes: sales tax, property tax in lieu of VLF. Those don't come in, we're in a big amount of hurt. And And you can see it right from this chart. I mean, taxes dominate our funding streams. Here are the general fund expenditures by category. Here, salaries and benefits are the largest expense, $25 million, up almost $3 million from our last full year of actuals, which is 23-24. Materials and services, $11.9 million. Interfund charges, $3.4 million. Functional expenses, $400,000. Special payments, $1.5 million. Capital, $600,000, and transfers out $900,000. And this is by department. Here, police is the largest department in the budget. Again, not a big surprise. That's pretty typical for cities and counties here in California. Public safety is the biggest expenditure within the general fund. And that is the case again this year. Personnel changes. So full-time equivalents are decreasing from just a hair over 301 positions to just a hair over 294. So about 7 positions are being lost in this budget. This is mostly in part-time FTEs. And the decrease is due to 2 reasons. First, we always go back and look to see how many hours are actually being used in the part-time staff. We take a look and we compare it to what was budgeted. And if we see that they're able to deliver the service and by using less hours, we cut back the hours to match what the actual level of service that was provided. So we did that analysis last year. We did it again this year. It resulted in about 6 positions of FTE time being reduced. And then we have a vacant administrative assistant position in grants, and we are proposing to eliminate that as well. There are no new positions or position conversions in this budget. So, probably one of the biggest questions I get asked often, like 3 times, is, and 2 of them are from my mom, is that, how did you balance the general fund? How do you do it? So I thought we'd peek behind the curtain and actually show you how we balance the general fund this year. So this budget process doesn't happen just, over a month or so. We've been working on this since, I think the first kickoff meeting was in January, if I remember right. And then we've had meetings with the city manager and departments. We did that all in March and April. And then we start really honing in on the numbers when we get to May. When we really started honing in at the kind of middle of May, we had a difference between revenues and expenses of about $2.3 million. And that was our gap that we had to close. So this is the way we did it. We first identified one-time expenses that could be paid with unreserved general fund carryover monies. As I mentioned before, $1,460,841. Where did that go? $650,000 went to the deferred maintenance fund as a transfer to fund the deferred maintenance fund that was set up this fiscal year by council. We also wanted to start up a 10x10 street maintenance program. I'll talk about that in a little bit as I get into the presentation, but the portion of the general funds portion is $219,041. We had some equipment purchases that Parks requested, one-time items. I'll mention some of those a little later, but $50,800 went to that. The general plan's housing element, $375,000 for that, for the development of that element. And then the Lions Town and Country Park batting cage project for $96,000. Next, we identified those expenses that were Measure K eligible, but were baked into the budget originally coming out of the general fund. So that totaled $662,209. Where do those come from? Well, we'll focus first on the Measure K police, which was for about a little over almost $452,000 of that $662. First one was a network administrator salary. And you're probably sitting there going, why would you do a network administrator salary with Measure K police? Well, actually, in the enabling legislation, it called for this position to be funded with Measure K dollars. Last year, when we moved all IT personnel back to the IT department, that the salary of that position got moved out of police, out of Measure K, and into the IT budget. So we brought it back to Measure K with this budget. A couple of years ago, the city was awarded a COPS grant that was for 4 police officer positions. COPS grant has a very significant match payment that we have to make. And This year, the match is $270,530. We have been paying that out of the general fund. With this budget, we're proposing that it be paid out of the Measure K Police Fund. We have 16 officers that are assigned whose salaries are being paid by Measure K, but some of their ancillary costs are not. Cell phones being one of them, that was $8,000. We also moved some electric utility charges to Measure K for $10,500 and software costs of $19,357. So that, as I mentioned, that all totals for just under $452,000 that now Measure K will be picking up as opposed to the general fund. On the Measure K fire side, only one change. We have after Measure K was approved by the voters, the fire department added a second battalion chief. That battalion chief position has been paid just like everything else with Measure K Fire, 2/3, 1/3. So 2/3 general fund, 1/3 Measure K. However, because it was added after Measure K and as part of our discussions, we came to the conclusion that perhaps that whole position should be funded because that was an added position added after Measure K was approved. So that position, 2/3 of that position costs $210,392. And so so basically now the entire second battalion chief position will be paid by Measure K. So after those two steps, we still had a $189,630 gap. And that was filled through a combination of revenue adjustments and expense reductions. So as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, we changed our growth rate on property tax. We have been using 2%, which is the Prop 13 standard. But we have been growing over the last 6 years. We've averaged 6.8% growth in our property tax. And so we bumped it up to 3.1. It's still under historic average, but it's higher than the 2. And we feel comfortable with that growth rate going forward. So that generated an extra $58,200. We eliminated a consultant contract for grant writing. That freed up $52,800. We eliminated the parks contingency for $30,000, and we reduced the streets contingency from $100 to just under $39,000. So that freed up about $61,000. So after we did all those steps, we had a $12,541 surplus, and we decided to propose the purchase of 2 lighted message boards and 1 light tower, which we don't have any of those things, which is kind of a little surprising, but we went ahead and put those in. I should mention this is just the general fund portion of those purchases. An equal amount to this is being contributed by the water fund, the sewer fund, and the supplemental law enforcement fund. So all told, it's a little over $50,000 that's going to be used to purchase these items. And that's how we did it. That's how we balanced it. That I should mention, that's the clean version of the story. There is an R-rated one, but you have to go into closed session in order to hear that one. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. There's no R-rated version there. I should say there was quite a bit of debate about how to balance this, but it was all done very professionally and very respectfully. And I really think it produced a much better product than just if we had just not discussed it as thoroughly as we did. So anyhow, that's the true other side of the story. Okay, so what is in this budget? Well, for fleet, we have an electric pickup at $195,000, 3 police interceptors at $300,000. We're also proposing the purchase of fleet management software, $177,000. This will help us keep track of our fleet assets, particularly their usage and their depreciation, a little more accurately than what we're doing right now. On information services, we are proposing to purchase some additional network attached storage. This is basically more servers for $120,000. Computer replacements, this would be for our laptops that we have, $66,000, as well as battery backup systems in case power goes down and we need emergency power. We have the backups. That would be $20,000 there. Police, we are proposing to purchase a breaching tool for $12,000. We are looking to purchase 7 pole cameras. We had some in this year's budget. We're buying some more, $70,000, as well as various facility remodels totaling $415,000. Parks, they are proposing the Sunrise Rotary Sports Complex goalposts to be purchased or replaced and purchase new ones, $10,000. The addition of a sand volleyball court at McNally Park, $10,000. And then the purchase of curtains at the Pan Am Center for the stage, $20,000. We made a lot of changes to the budget in 24-25. We're nowhere near that revamping in this year's budget, but we did have one change. Public Works admin costs have been, for years, have been part of the Streets Division budgets. And that arrangement makes it difficult to figure out how much of that is actually admin and how much is streets. That has some impact on our reimbursement if we do grants, if we don't know what the actual admin cost is. So we are proposing to break that out, and there is a standalone Public Works admin budget in the proposed budget for the general, and it's housed in the general fund. So let's talk about some of these continuing programs and some of the new ones. We've got I'll go through some of these. I think I've got most of these, but anyhow, we've got deferred maintenance program, sidewalk replacement program, safe and clean team, CRT, which is police, alley paving, fire hydrant program with Public Works and fire equipment replacement program. All these are included in this budget. The deferred maintenance fund, that was a new addition this year that we added. This year's funding was $396,000. The deferred maintenance fund is intended to provide a stable funding source for addressing deferred maintenance issues. In this budget, we're bumping that up. We're going from 396 to 650. In this budget, we are including the replacement of 2 more HVAC units of police. We did 2 this year. We're going to do 2 again next year. We're proposing to do it. We are looking to have, that's $30,000, $60,000 for sealer at the John Wells Center gym walls. It's my understanding they're starting to leak. And so before the floor gets damaged, we want to seal those walls. So that's $60,000, as I mentioned. And then the John Wells Center roof repair is $30,000. We are still putting money away, $200,000. We put $200,000 this year. We're proposing to put $200,000 next year for the roof at the Public Works Complex. That's a 5-year project. And at the end of 5 years, we'll have $1 million, and that should be enough to re-roof the entire, what we would call the courtyard, basically. So all the buildings out there in about 3 years or so. Fire equipment replacement program, beginning in 2018-19, the city created a Measure K equipment replacement program. City initially contributed $200,000 for Measure K. In response to increasing costs, that was increased to $490,000. We are recommending an additional $490,000 in this year's this proposed budget. We are not looking to do any purchases in the 25-26 budget, but we will begin the process of procuring a new Type 1 and Type 6 engine to replace existing equipment. And you're probably like, what's a Type 1 and a Type 6? Well, we happen to have pictures. So this is and the left is the Type 1, and then the right is the Type 6. So we're looking to purchase, we are not going to purchase them in 25-26 again, but we're going to start the process of doing that because it is actually a multi-year process to get this kind of equipment. So we'll start it now. You'll probably see it pop up in the 26-27 budget. New initiatives, the 10x10 street paving program, water well maintenance program, and wastewater treatment plant maintenance program. I mentioned this last week, but just to reiterate, a 10x10 patching program is brand new. It's designed to address street repairs that are too extensive for standard pothole patching, but not large enough to qualify as a capital project in the CIP. We are proposing to have $519,000. As I mentioned, $219,000 is coming from the general fund. The rest is coming from Measure T. Staff will be issuing an RFP for pavement services during FY 25-26, assuming council approves this program. Water well maintenance program. City has 18 operational water wells. You recently authorized the construction of a new well, so that'll get us up to 19 operational ones. We have 2 that are currently down, so we will soon have a grand total of 21. This budget includes $180,000 for the city's new water well maintenance program, which will establish new preventive protocols, rehab efforts, and on-call repair services. Much like the 10 by 10 program, we'll issue an RFP for this maintenance assistance during 25-26, assuming you approve it. It is entirely paid with water fund resources. And the wastewater treatment maintenance program, $878,000 for new operational program to address maintenance needs, including pump, valve replacements, control system upgrades, heat exchanger services, et cetera. This program will be paid with sewer fund resources. Measure K, always of interest. Measure K, the projected revenues are 7.2 million. That includes interest. The base sales tax is like 6.9 million. So we're expecting, and that's combined Measure K fire and Measure K police. It's split almost 50-50 interest. There's a little more interest going to fire than police, but it is split. The base sales tax is split 50-50. It's accounted for in different funds. Fire pays for expenses of Station 58, including debt service. Police pays for salaries, as I mentioned previously. And then the $450,000 for facility improvements that I've mentioned previously is all being paid out of Measure K this year. Council also authorized, or I guess required, this creation of a Measure K stabilization fund. That was created several years ago. There's one for PD, one for fire. Each have just right at $1 million. And we've been putting 130,000 in one and 130,000 in the other for a grand total 260,000 a year into the stabilization funds. And the idea was that they would be, we would continue to put in that amount of money until they reach 30% of expenditures. Well, we hit it. Yay, we made it. And so we don't need to put 130,000 in going forward. So in the 25-26 budget, we have $8,800 from fire and $28,100 from police. So you can expect going forward smaller amounts like this being put in just to keep it at that 30% level. But unless there's a dramatic increase in Measure K revenue and corresponding expenses, I don't think we're going to get back to those days of $130,000 being set aside in each of those funds. The Emergency Stabilization Fund. So under our city's reserve policies, the city will maintain a general fund contingency at a level of at least 30% of general fund operating expenses. For FY 25-26, that's 13.1 million, which is an increase of about $250,000 in comparison 24-25. I want to emphasize this fund is not being used for that $1,464,000. Okay, instead, we are only using the undesignated general fund reserve, which I have to make a confession. Last week, I gave you incorrect information when I was talking about this. I got the page number in the ACFR right, and I got the dollar amount right, but I credited it to the undesignated reserve. I said there was 12.9 million in there. The 12.9 million is actually in the Emergency Stabilization Fund. When now we're going to increase it by 250,000 to get it to 13.1. What's in the undesignated reserve is 13.3. And we're going to add 800, as I mentioned last week, 800 in there. And then we're going to spend the $1,464,000. So if nothing else changes, we should be at 12.7 million of undesignated reserve at the end of FY 25-26. City debt, we're going to pay $8 million in principal and interest this year. We have, as of Monday, we will have $50 million of outstanding debt left. This year in the 25-26, we are going to pay off the 2018 police facilities loan and the 2018 successor agency B bonds. Much like an eclipse of the sun or the moon, it's going to be years before we see it again with us paying off. Our next loan and bond retirement will be in FY 25 or FY 35-36. This is the debt that's getting paid off, or this is our debt payments this year. You can see that we have about $1.1 million up in the, I won't call it general fund. General fund's about, as you see there, direct general funds about 226,000. We do pay out the general fund for the solar lease as well. But the bottom line, $1.6 million from general resources. From the water fund, about 783,000. Sewer fund, 2.5 million. And then our successor agency and CFD debt, when combined, about $3 million. So grand total, about $8 million of debt that we're going to pay this year. Here's our nice chart showing you the debt service each year. We do have a dip in the successor agency bond payments in 28-29. It bounces right back, comes back in 29-30. And then we see another reduction in the successor agency bonds at 34-35. And then you see the big drop off in utility debt in 36-37. And those are we make the last payment on in 35-36, and then therefore we don't have as much debt in 36-37. So I want to flag a couple of ongoing issues with you as in this budget. Proposed budget includes a transfer of basically $1,000 to the landscape maintenance districts, which is down from $158,459 in FY 24-25. However, all that, as I mentioned to you last year, all that did was just paper over the deficits that were there. We still have an ongoing deficit between revenues and expenses, which means that this transfer amount, the $1,000, is likely to increase probably pretty close to back to that 150 again next year, if nothing is done. So just a heads up that could be coming down the pipeline. Second, fees charged by the general fund have generally not been increased since 2018-19 or fiscal year 18-19. You recently approved a contract with ClearSource Financial to review or revise and update the fees. ClearSource's recommendation on fee levels will likely be part of the 26-27 budget. So our recommendation is that staff recommends approval of the 25-26 proposed budget, $221.8 million, as well as the corresponding GAN limit of $62.8 million. So I'm going to wrap up by doing some acknowledgements. I've said a couple of times before, my job here is really just the marketing of this thing. But a lot of people put in the work to actually get this done. So I want to thank all the department directors, their staff, who put in a lot of hours to make sure all these proposals were in place. I want to give a special shout out to Wendy Silva, who did all the position costing. That's a really tricky part of the budget. She did a very, very good job on that. I want to also thank my staff, particularly Richard Gracia, sitting right over there, who did a lot of the number crunching. I want to thank Arnaldo for his leadership throughout the process. And I want to thank you for being so attentive throughout all these budgets. I know that I toss a lot of numbers at you, but I really appreciate the questions and the interest that you have in the budget. And with that, I'm going to stop talking. And so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Director Lima. I'll bring it back to my colleagues for any questions or concerns or comments. Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Gallegos. And again, thank you, Mr. Lima, for providing us that very intense budget review over the last weeks. Just want to clarify something. We know that our emergency fund balance requires a 30%. I think you mentioned 13.1 million. Our unrestricted fund balance is going to make a transfer. Is there a requirement on that unrestricted fund balance? I know we have over 12.8 million or 13 million. After this transfer, closer to 12. What's the requirement there? I mean, I know an emergency fund balance requires 30%. Is there a requirement here?
No. The reserve policy of the city specifically requires 30% of appropriations be put in a emergency reserve or stabilization fund. Anything above that is money that can be used almost for anything because it is general fund money.
I mean, in your opinion, it's always best to use it as a one-time, kind of like what we're doing here to supplement the general fund with some of the capital outlay that we'll do. But that is something we can draw down. Is there a level that we need to be cautious about where we don't want to go beyond this within an unrestricted fund balance?
Well, first off, let me say that really is council discretion. Let me just start with that. Okay. I always like having money in the bank because you never know what's going to break. And this is general fund money, which means it could be used anywhere. So I hearken back to the sewer line breaks that happened a couple of years ago. If the sewer fund did not have adequate resources on its own, you could have used this money to supplement it and then required to be paid back. So it's always kind of, do I have enough? Do I not have enough? It's tough to say. That being said, I will say that 12.7 million is a healthy fund balance, being unreserved. 12.7 is very healthy, particularly given that you have an emergency stabilization reserve of 13.1. So I would say that you probably could, if you had some emergencies come up, one-time expenses, as you pointed out, I would say that they would be able to be utilized.
Thank you. Appreciate everything that you presented again. Very detailed and very, you explained it well. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Councilwoman Mejia.
Thank you, Mayor. When you had mentioned a couple of slides ago that the number of positions, they were adjusted based on how many hours were used, how would that work out when you have new staff or with the turnover rate?
So those are part-time. And so if so because those are part-time, you are basically hiring as you need them to be to you do the program. So it really isn't, I don't know that I would categorize it as a new position kind of issue. It's more, if you're providing the service and you're finding, oh, I only need 5 hours to do this, but I have budgeted 10, I can reduce it back. So that's really kind of how it operates. I don't know that it affects that. I'm sure I'm not answering your question, but anyhow, but maybe you can kind of rephrase it if I'm not getting there.
So when you have new personnel, you would be able to adjust that back like in the following years to get that if they need it, if they need those hours.
So yeah, I mean, basically the part-time hours are like a pool of hours. You can hire, you're given say 1,000 hours. You can hire 500 people to do 1,000 hours of work, but they'd each only get 2 hours apiece. So it's given in the number of hours, like I said, and then the number of people that actually fill that is something less. To your question, can that be adjusted? Absolutely. If we see that, hey, we didn't get this item set up in time, we were late in doing this, maybe we don't have enough hours, the department comes back and asks and says, hey, we can't get the work done with the number of hours we've got in this pool, we need to increase. That is absolutely part of the discussion every year, and it will continue to be part of that discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Councilmember
I
Montez.
just wanted to add my thank yous to, I wasn't here in some of the presentations. I do appreciate that you break it up and you give it to us kind of in digestible pieces. I did listen to the budget gnomes. I think you referenced.
Yes,
last time.
they're budget gnomes. Yeah,
that kept me, like, oh, there's gnomes in this one. But no, I do appreciate all the work that you guys have done, all the work that staff has done, and giving it to us in a way, because this isn't, for most of us, this is not what we do on a daily basis. So it really does help. Break it up and give it to us, kind of feed it to us slowly. So thank you for all your work you've done on this.
you're welcome.
Thank you for your comment, Councilmember Montez. And I just have one comment saying that this is the largest budget in our city's history. I have to say I've seen 10 budgets, and this budget was prepared and presented to us very professionally and very easy reading to navigate through it. And for a while there, I was thinking I needed to get a financial degree or something to go through a budget, but this was very nicely done. And I know it took a lot of hard work. I even sent Director Lima a text and said, or email and said, I hope there wasn't a lot of tears involved and arm wrestles in this budget, but we appreciate all the hard work that it took to put this together.
Thank you.
With that, I will open up for public comment.
I did have one other question there, Mayor.
Oh, sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez. Thank you.
I'll just finish up with this, Director Lima. Thank you again. I heard the Fed chair talk about how our economy is slowing down. We're approving this proposed budget for 25-26. I think you guys have determined the amount of rate when it comes to sales tax, what to factor moving forward with certain quarters coming in. are we comfortable with what we have, or is that a revision that we'll do? Come back and say, hey, we projected this, here's what we're at today. We may not meet that proposed budget, but we have our unrestricted fund balance to be able to supplement if that point is reached. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer your question in pieces there. Our sales tax estimate for this year is lower than it was or in the proposed budget is lower than it was for FY 24-25. I think I mentioned that at at the revenue workshop that we had. So we believe we are conservative in our number and how we're approaching sales tax. So if it even gets worse than that, yes, we will be coming back to council and saying, here's an issue. That being said, we also have some other shock absorbers in here. As I mentioned, property tax has grown an average of 6.8% per year over the last 6 years. We are budgeting 3.1% growth. If it comes in at 6.8, that's an extra 3% growth that we are not capturing in this budget. That would be a place we would go to say, we are offsetting sales tax with this extra growth. There is no cannabis money in this budget. That's coming in at around 200,000 a year. That's another shock absorber that if sales tax falls out, we can say, oh, let's tap that cannabis money and use that to fund operations. So we have some shock absorbers in here that would protect us from that kind of issue. But if it blows through all those shock absorbers, and I've lived through 3 what we call black swan events, 9/11, the subprime mortgage meltdown, and COVID. If all that if you blow through that, yes, you could use some of that undesignated fund balance to help carry you through and get you through the fiscal year. But just be aware that we do have some, as I call them, shock absorbers in this budget in case sales tax doesn't come in the way we think it should.
And thank you. It's important for not only this council to know that, but also our audience who's watching us that we do, our staff does a very diligent work in trying to make sure that we provide shock absorbers, as you say, right? So that we can sustain the load and be able to get through our fiscal year. But thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you for explaining that.
No problem.
And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez. With that, I'll open up to public comments. Anyone online or on Zoom?
We have none, Mayor.
I close public comment at that time and bring it to my colleagues for adoption of B1.
I'll move to approve item B1.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Finance Director Lima.
Thank you.
With that, we'll be moving into closed session. Our city clerk will take us in.
Okay, bear with me because I'm not going to read it as fast as our city
Told her we're
attorney.
timing her like Shannon.
Item G1 in closed session, conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code 54957.6, agency designated representative Arnaldo Rodriguez, unrepresented positions, police chief, director of parks and community services, city engineer, director of human resources, director of information technology, chief building official, planning manager, director of financial services, public works operations director, and director of community development.
Thank you. With that, I open up for public comment. I see none. Anybody online or on Zoom?
We have none, Mayor.
I will close public comment and we will move into closed session. If you're not here when we get out, thank you for joining us tonight and have a great evening, everyone. there is no reportable action on closed session. And with that, I will adjourn this meeting at 7:30, and we will see you Wednesday, July 2nd. Good night, everyone.